Welcome to another broadcast of Global TV, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
Now, here's your host, Ed Cohen.
Hi, it's Ed Cohen. Global TV talk shows on the air. I'm in San Diego, and we have a global cast with us today of experts involved with people issues, mobility issues, psychology, authors, education, really a wonderful cross-section. So very quickly, we want to go around the panel and make sure everybody gets to know each other. Our role here is education, and our role is networking, okay? So we used to do live meetings, of course, in many situations, and that all stopped on February 28th with our last meeting in Washington, D.C. It was on Embassy Row. It was quite a nice meeting. It was a sellout, and then that was it. No meetings since. So we've developed the TV idea. I call it TV. It's video. Nazia, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so was that you calling just a couple of minutes ago?
Yes, actually, I didn't have the link to log in. So Ali helped me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so just announcing that we're a talk show and everybody gets to talk. And we're going to start now with Wendy Kendall. So Wendy, I would like you to very briefly introduce yourself, and very quickly, we're going to go around the room, and then we're going to come back to you to talk with me about global talent and about what you're working on now as a chartered psychologist. Okay, I have known Wendy for a number of years. She has spoken at several of our meetings. And Wendy, please take over now.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks so much for inviting me as well. It's always a pleasure. And so as Ed mentioned, I'm a psychologist, but I'm also the managing director of an organization called Globally Talented, and we're a behavioral science consultancy that focuses on strengthening the psychological health and performance of the global workforce. So we spent a lot of time focusing on helping people through highly disruptive transitions, which are really transitions where, you know, these global job moves are essentially the kind of thing that one of the few activities corporates ask, where it fractures the personal and professional life of the individual, and that has implications. So now also, because of the impact of all of this disruption, so not just pandemic, but also other forms of disruption, we also take a broader look at what are the demands that are being placed on the global workforce, globally distributed teams and so on, and so we support companies and individuals through that.
Right. So a long time ago, Wendy was involved with the British military as an organizational psychologist and helping their officer corps adjust to relocation, to being out of sorts, to figure out how to integrate better. Isn't that correct?
Yes, I was a military psychologist for 7 years at the start of my career, and then as a family we moved to France the first time that we moved overseas, and I was really struck why we were being taught this idea that there was going to be a U-shaped integration curve and we'd all be down in the doldrums for a while. And I thought, well, that's interesting because, you know, we put soldiers and officers through highly disruptive transitions and we expect them to hit the ground running. So why are we setting it up with the expectation that they will go through a U-shaped integration curve? So I started kind of applying some of those principles and did some research around how you can actually get a bit more of an S-curve and a learning curve and a much more generative, value-building process out of a highly disruptive transition. And that also insulates people in a way that they don't end up in that tipping point of, you know, going down the U-bend.
Okay, that's great. Fiona, please say hi and welcome. Bonsoir to you.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. For those who don't know me, I run a global immigration practice. We have headquarters in France, and we have offices in India and in China. So I'm very interested by what Wendy's going to be telling us about. Of course, with the disruption due to COVID, we can really see this impacting not only our clients, where I think that a lot of empathy is needed, but also within the team as well. So it's going to be a very interesting session.
And so thank you, my friend, for being such a big supporter and promoter of this. Without you, a lot of this could not happen. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So now I want to go to Nazia. Nazia is in UAE. Welcome again.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody.
Yes. Hello. So you are on site. You're with Serva Relocation, but you're on site at Honeywell and something else, right?
Yes, primarily for Honeywell. I've been here for the past 6.5 years, just an on-site consultant, supporting their mobility, relocation functions, because of course there's across regions, but there are particular regions and somebody is responsible to be on site face-to-face to the client.
Yeah,
Yes.
good. Okay, I thank you very much for being here. So we're going to go round and round, and everybody can just jump in and say anything. So it's open forum here. Okay, Ali Shami and I have known each other about 20 years. Retired recently from selling airplanes around the world for Boeing. So welcome again, my friend.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm really looking forward from learning. You got a lot of experience. I am so looking forward to it. And the only stress I have is hopefully I'll be able to contribute a little bit of what I'm going to be gaining. So it's great to be here. I'm in Seattle, cloudy Seattle. And as Ed mentioned, that I retired from Boeing about 2 years ago. And about a year ago, I started a company called FTD Global. And FTD stands for Feel, Think, Do. Two divisions of the company is global, or I should say local leadership, connecting executives together for the best of all the companies, just connect them together. The other branch is cultural awareness. So just how do you communicate? How do you do business across the cultures? So I'm an American of Lebanese origin.
Right. You were in Beirut and you left there when you were just a young boy, right?
Yeah. Luckily, I wasn't in Beirut during the most recent explosion that you guys have heard about that. So, but sometimes it's much worse being outside the country because you worry about it more than what people are in there. Because if they don't hear anything, and so the news gets amplified, and so yeah, I've been in the States for over 35 years, 40 years now, 35.
Yeah, that's cool. So Ali has spoken at a few of our live meetings, and in San Francisco, as well as, of course, in Seattle. And someday we'll do it again. All right, Sandra, you're east of Riyadh, and welcome again to our program. Please intro yourself.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Thank you, Ed, for having me. I appreciate it. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to talk about women in the workplace. And so I have the first global mobility book club in the industry. And we talk about authors, white papers, thesis, all kinds of content that has anything to do with global mobility. And it's not limited to anything. We talk about wellness, culture, compensation, you name it, we talk about it. And one of my favorite things is to be able to have the opportunity to talk with people that create things that make an impact and a change, right? And if not, we create the panel so that we can all talk and share. That's what I do. The book club is called GOMO X. And hopefully if anybody is interested that has written papers, would like to share with the community of global mobility partners, you're more than welcome. Please contact me, reach out to me, to Sandra Corona on LinkedIn.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we want everybody to use the chat. You'll look on the bottom of the screen, there's a chat there. Please feel free to type in your name and your email, your website, and this is not for sales pitches, it's for introductions, okay? We want everybody, although we're entering as strangers, you know, we're going to leave as friends, and we're going to work hard to achieve that. I want to introduce Julie Taylor, who's, as I mentioned, the headmaster of the bridgeschool.net. Julie, please quickly introduce yourself better than me.
Thanks, Ed. Yes, so our school, the Bridge School, is a K through 12 international accredited school. We're fully online. Our curriculum is a fully digital curriculum. And so we serve students across the globe and allow students to graduate with us obtaining a US-based diploma.
Oh, that's cool. And so thebridgeschool.net, we're going to hear about this from you in a bit. Okay, Angie Weinberger from Zurich, thanks very much for being there. Yeah, so Angie Weinberger and I have known each other as well. We've just done a couple of things together, a couple of shows. And your primary work now is about people in transition and helping expats, particularly minorities, women. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I wrote a book and it's been published last year, the Global Mobility Workbook. And I work with expats. I'm an expat coach and their partners. And mainly I help them with finding a job in the new market, because that's a challenge for everybody. But it's a bigger challenge if you're from a minority or, you know, from certain backgrounds. So I'm trying to focus even more on people with a minority background.
Great. Okay, thank you. Beverly Sun, welcome from Hong Kong. I really appreciate you being there. I know it's late and there's so much going on, but apparently you're well and your family's well, and Hong Kong continues to thrive as a business center. Welcome.
Thank you very much. First, Fiona and Ed, thank you both for inviting me into the session. I'm thrilled to meet all of you. Most of you I have not met, and some I have. Just by way of background, I'm originally from Hawaii and never dreamed to be in Asia nearly 40 years ago. And through the traumas of moving here, the cultural gaps, the misperceptions of who I was and what it was, I actually pioneered relocation services here in Hong Kong and took the model to China 25 years ago. So since that time, we've also expanded our services within the APAC region in respect of providing services that are highly personalized and I would say intended to bridge gaps in culture. So I like Angie's approach, not only minority women, but also groups which may not necessarily have interacted previous to a move. So that type of transition can make a difference in one's adaptability and one's success in a new environment. We are a real estate based group as well, because I thought that there was no real representative and one needs a home. So there was a commitment to integrity in real estate practices, which, as you know, can be daunting in this part of the world. Our laws are divergent, our practices are divergent. Some cities are better than others. So we pay a good deal of attention to representation, cost savings, and just ethics. So my work over the years has really been of developing a sense of passionate, personalized services with a deep sense of integrity for my team. And that's what you have here today.
So now I want to introduce Teresa Howe from Southern California. Welcome again, my friend.
Hi there, Ed. How are you?
Yeah, just great. So you are a longtime relocation industry professional. Why don't you do a little deep dive on your background? You do it a lot better than me.
So I started a consulting business in January of this year. I know the timing was excellent with COVID and all that. It was great, but you know, but it's actually going very well because I work primarily with real estate brokers and relocation management companies, and I help them develop new programs and improve customer service and generate new sources of revenue. And thankfully, brokers have kind of stepped back right now, and I think are really looking at how can they change the way they do business. This has been a pause for everyone. But as Ed said, I came from the real estate world. I worked for Coldwell Banker NRT for many, many years, and for Pacific Union as well, doing business development. So I really love working with brokers, with real estate companies, and with the RMCs to see how I can help improve their business models. Sometimes you got to step back and take a look at it in a little bit different way, and now's really the time to do that.
Thank you very much. Maria, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Maria Jureco here. I'm from Alberta, Canada. Edwin, thanks for inviting me in this global insight and exchange. I'm happy to see global participation here. So my background is I am a human resource professional, but I have been trained with providing intercultural training as well in terms of communication skills. So I am with Consultation Global. So we are a global training development firm, and I am the one managing the Canada operations. We have 4 locations. We have one in UK, main offices in the Philippines, and we also have one in Australia. And so my focus is helping HR leaders and business leaders in terms of ensuring that retention is not going to be a major issue for them. So what we're doing right now is we are actually developing and enhancing our program in terms of inclusive behaviors to include psychological safety as well. So yeah, that's me.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Please share your contact details if you haven't already. All right. So let's go to Shraddha in India. Hello again. Welcome.
Hi, Edwin. Thanks for having me on this. It's so great to see so many faces from across the globe. It's almost like being back at the conferences. Yeah, so to introduce myself, we're a destination services provider based out of India. We work pan-India. We're about a 4.5-year-old company. So I would say new kids on the block compared to everybody else I see over here. I recognize quite a few faces. And it's good to see you guys again. We started immigration services about a year ago. So this year has been a very steep learning curve. And it's been interesting. And I guess I'm excited about the topic we're discussing today. It's something very close to my heart. It's something which I feel very strongly about. And I guess the one thing maybe if we've learned during this entire phase has been, I guess, empathy, but a whole new meaning to it. So yeah, looking forward to the discussion ahead.
Oh, good. Thank you. Juliana, let's go to you. Welcome from Brazil.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm talking from Brazil, from São Paulo, and I am an immigration lawyer. I run a company with immigration in Brazil with a partner. And yes, I'm really excited to be here. I've been talking with Fiona and Ben and discussing about the idea and the possibility of creating this community, especially in this moment that we are living in. So I hope I can be helpful here and bring insights. And
great. Okay, this is wonderful. Lena, please introduce yourself and tell us about an immersion, and then I've got a couple of questions for you.
Ooh, all right. Well, my name is Lena. I founded an immersion, which was previously called Newcomers, in 1995. So I have done the U-curve with Kelly, and I know quite a few of you, which is great. And I think we live in the same world, and we've all learned a lot about remote work, women, and how this works with having kids at home, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a great deal of camaraderie around this, isn't it? And also, Teresa, I think you are in a great position to start a new company in a recession and a major crisis. I did that too. And all I can say is that it's a really, really good thing to do. But you will be very much weathered for a storm, because this is probably the worst one you will go through. At least it has been for me, and I've been through 4 at this point.
Yeah. So Lena, you have a blog going on, and I'm lucky enough to be on that trail. Recently you inspired me, and I commented on it, I think it was a week ago, about some kind of a conversation that was going on about the devil, the brain sometimes works against you. At other times it's like inspirational, like me putting this thing together. That's a peak, right? And then you of course have a valley, which is what I was referring to in that, back to you. When sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, your brain starts telling you, no, you're bad, or you shouldn't do this, or something bad's going to happen. And then bang, and then one of those times I was up and I happened to be looking at my phone and I saw your conversation, and I have to tell you, it clicked. And so Lena is a great resource, and I don't mean to embarrass you, but I think people ought to know about your blog and just contribute, as we are today, contribute to how all of us in business can assist each other understand the demons that goes on, as well as some of the opportunity if you think about it better or correctly. Julie, in education, I'm sorry, do you want to take that drink? Being an educator for 20 years, how do you teach brain control, or how to use negatives and turn them around?
Yeah, we actually have a brand new curriculum this year, and it's based on social emotional learning. And so one of the things that has been huge in our society right now is just the mental health crisis that our adults and teenagers are facing. So what we are starting to do is implement not just a one single course dealing with how to deal with just life in general, but mini lessons. So, 5 to 10 minute lessons that we can assign students every day that talk about real life situations and how you could, think through that and how you could handle different situations. It could be social media, it could be friends, it could be something with a pandemic, so we take that into bite-sized pieces to really teach them to think through their options and, how their choices affect different areas of their life.
Good, thank you very much. Lynn Greenberg in New York area, you're in a mad dash search for venture capital because you're on fire. Your idea about pivot and things associated with that are future. Tell us more about pivot and what you're doing.
Thank you, Ed. And thank you so much for organizing, Fiona and Ed. So Pivot is the social app designed specifically to reduce churn and improve the well-being of relocated and mobile employees. So it started actually out of my own experience, relocating to London with my employer at the time, which was Bloomberg, and not having the tools I needed to acclimate. And there were two things I really needed. The first was information on my city from people I trusted. I didn't know where to live, which bank to join, where to take my mom for dinner when she came to visit, things I didn't want to rely on a Google or a TripAdvisor for. And then the second piece was, how do you recreate your network from scratch? Because as anyone that moves knows, it's friends you need the most when you're adjusting to a new and unfamiliar place. So we're working hard to try to, tackle that problem and work with the global mobility teams and business travelers to really make a difference there.
Great, thank you. Ben Sukia, this is our first time meeting. I thank you for jumping on this morning. Your afternoon, but my morning.
Nice to meet you all. Yeah, I know quite a few of you actually, but some of you are new to me. So I mean, I'm very, very much fascinated by the topic, and it's great to speak to you all. I'm obviously based in London. In terms of my background, I've been in the industry for about 10 years. My focus is primarily global immigration, so coordinating with partners in different countries, which involves understanding about different cultures. One of the reasons why I think this is a very important topic is because we're obviously in a bit of a mess globally at the moment. And my personal opinion is most male leaders haven't got a clue, generally speaking. The real kind of leaders, the people shining, and I'm not just saying this because there are women on the call, this is generally my opinion, but the people that are actually shining the light, and there are 3 or 4 names that I can mention later maybe, are all women. So I think we need to look to strong women, and I think they can maybe help us, not just politically and socially, but maybe in the industry as well. And there's certain women leaders at the moment that are doing certain things. I'm happy to talk about them more. But we need to, and it's not just actually about women, but it's the bigger issue is the future generations, and the idea of community. But I think the people that are leading us in the right path are women, strong women, and it needs to be a global effort. So it needs to be something like what we see right now, with people from all over the world contributing and showing leadership, and that mainly at the moment is coming from women. So it's a pleasure to be part of this discussion, and I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say.
Yeah, Ben, tell us about your company. What's the name of it?
My firm is called Reese Edwards. So they primarily provide UK immigration services to private individuals and corporate companies. I joined in June, so in the middle of the lockdown here, which was interesting. But we assist with primarily immigration services. Having said that, my role is to also grow and develop the business. So I do connect with people in tax and relocation as well. My personal passion, as some of you know, is understanding people at a human level. So things like emotional intelligence and deeper matters, human matters that are transcendent across industries. And also, as some of you know, I'm really passionate about developing the circular economy and making migration more distributive, so that it's not just centered on certain economies and sectors, that it's a global initiative. But yeah, plenty to say. So happy to be part of the conversation and contribute as well.
Good, thank you. Well, global talent is what we're all about too. Anita, welcome from Bonn, Germany.
Hi, everybody. Again, very nice to be here. Thank you, Fiona and Ed, for inviting me. I'm Anita. I do know some of the faces here as well. It's a huge pleasure for me. It's the first time. And I joined Point for Mobility in Germany about 1.5 years ago, but I'm in the industry for the past 10 years. And 2019, I moved to Bonn I got a great team, and I have the pleasure to work with one of the best people in the industry. Of course, we're missing Jura in the conferences. And we mainly do immigration services inbound to Germany and also worldwide. I think, Ben, we have a lot to talk about with you. And we are also very much involved in EU posted worker and A1 certificates. This is the European type of registration of posted workers within the EU countries. And
Great.
yeah.
Good. Okay, make sure everybody's exchanging email and website. Okay, very important for follow-up. Let me briefly just say what's coming up in this program. In a few minutes, we're going to pause for looking at our commercials, okay? Our sponsors help me pay some bills, of course, and stay afloat. We all need that in the COVID economy, right? So, but more so, it's a look at video usage of video for communicating. So in our conversations going forward on the other side, let's talk about using video to communicate, and especially with the younger generation. So before I do that, I want to ask Nazia for, so am I pronouncing your name correctly? Please help me.
Yes, you are. That's absolutely fine.
Okay, great. And so you've been doing this kind of work for Serva for a while now. And does Serva have a big presence in UAE?
Yes, it has its own office, which is supports multiple clients, of course. And of course, this on-site was more of a client requirement. That is how the client wants his partners to support them. Then mostly the third parties are on site in this client. So that's the culture. And it has proven to be quite an effective one because having I mean, I know there's multiple people on the team, but there is one person who kind of, represent as a face. And though the responsibility is much higher on that person, but eventually you can establish an in-person kind of relationship rather than just remote. Because see, these big companies are mostly situated in US or UK and, quite remote to the Middle East if you compare. And then everything looks like remote and online, but which has quite a bit of change during the COVID-19 era, because before it was more in person, go and meet them. It makes it more, warm and things like that. But eventually, I mean, COVID-19 has kind of proven us a bit of wrong that, technology always wins then. But there's still a debate between the human element, the human touch, still should be there. I strongly believe that. And as well as a good utilization of technology. So yes, I've been in Dubai for the past 15 years. And just a quick note, and all I could think of when you said strong woman in the workplace. So after thinking a lot of points, in the end, I thought, are we strong enough still? Because you see, I'm representing a region which is different from all of you. Maybe Shraddha can understand, or maybe I don't know. She's very close to this place. So, but it's a hurdle race. So you pick one stone, which is like you break the conventional, the culture that is set up for particular ethnicity, and then you start breaking that, and then gender, and then you start breaking, then you come to a point, and either you've spent so much time breaking that and not having the opportunity to fully utilize your skills in a timely manner. So this is very common around the women here. They look strong, but the question, are they really strong or not? And how other strong women support other strong women. So it has always been my challenge, because when I see a strong woman, she has, not all maybe, but she has to act in a different manner. She cannot be very polite, soft, motherly, but she has to be strict and straight, and she walks across the office and she has to make her look like very strong most of the time, and she's not approachable most of the time. So what is that in our mind, that why do we have to say, you strong woman? So yeah, so many questions. I'm sorry to bring all that up because it's so close. Makes you more emotional. Spending so many years in the Middle East, working for American and British management. Though I enjoy my job a lot, but I don't think we are still there. I'm a very strong person. I'm more client than consultant, and if I leave my client, they will miss me more. But the question is still there: are we strong enough? So yeah, that's all.
Thank you very much for that. That's really going to be the cue for kicking off the second half of our show in just a minute. Fiona, I want to ask you for comments, and then I want to go quickly to Wendy. before we take a quick break?
So,
Fiona.
Nazia, I have never lived in the Middle East, and I can completely understand some of the issues. What I do believe, and this is something that I've discussed with a couple of other people who are on the show today, is that a strong woman is nothing to do with speaking loudly, showing your force. It actually has a lot to do with empathy. And it has to do with showing that you understand things. It's being very firm, but very soft at the same time. Just like a mother in many ways, you know, dealing with children. You've got to love them, but you've also got to keep them in line. Well, a strong woman, it's slightly like that. And it's also that you have to show that you're vulnerable. That's very important. I mean, we shouldn't be thought of, you know, people who, we don't cry, we don't have feelings, etc. That's totally wrong. But you've also got to have a certain strength, that you're not going to be put down. And what I do believe is really, really important, and it's a real role, is that we have to, professional women, help young girls across the world to be educated, to become strong. They've got to believe in themselves. A lot of children and a lot of girls, young girls, are not given that chance, and they're not given the chance to believe in themselves at all. And I've seen that inside the firm. You've got to install the fact that you may dream and you may get there if you work hard. But don't ever give up.
Thank you. So it's about finding mentors, right?
Yes. And I'm sorry, can I say?
No, please, Nazia, please.
I really appreciate, and I felt like I can listen to you for hours, the way you speak. It's so powerful in itself. And you're right about mentorship. And this should be the basic principle for all strong women in the corporate world, to reach out if even somebody's not reaching out to you, to do your part, because as Ben said, that he realized that women could have done better in those circumstances of COVID-19, is why, because we have the women thing, that empathy, that beauty, that is unique to this gender. So yes, I completely agree with you, and it should be across all platforms. It should be part of the HR policy. You know, it should come out of the administration of the corporate world.
Wendy Kendall, I'm going to stop talking and let you talk.
Yeah, you know, I started my career working in the military, right? As a 23-year-old psychologist straight out of my master's degree. So you can imagine that was a little bit challenging. You know, it's cultural, it's class, it's national, it's all of those things, and so what really, I mean, we all know, right, being a strong woman or a strong person means is so different across different parts of the world. I think the thing that comes to mind for me, which is a core kind of psychological capability, and it's where I most see people struggling generally, is around the area of psychological flexibility, and flexibility about who we think we are. And when that is very fixed and we struggle to shift that, it means we're struggling in relation to one another. It means we're probably not being as empathic as we could be. Certainly means we're often very tough on ourselves and very self-critical, and that isn't conducive after a certain point. And it also means that we struggle to transition in different environments. So if I think about what it means to be a strong woman, I would say, in particularly, I think as women we wear many hats. And maybe that also allows us to have some more scope for psychological flexibility. if I contrast that with some of the men that I work with, especially senior executives who are expected to be very successful and very driven and, really fitting a certain mold in order to reach higher levels within a corporate, that in itself can, in my experience, I've seen that become quite psychologically inflexible and not very flexible in terms of identity and role. So what I would hope is that in this discussion, we think about, for men and women, how we are becoming more flexible in how we see ourselves and how we approach different situations in life and the different hats that we have to wear.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I want to introduce Mark Colo, a friend from Southern California. Welcome again, Mark. Nope, got to put your voice on. Okay.
I have no sound.
Yeah, no sound. Mark, we'll get back to you. We're going to show about 3 minutes of video here, Paul.
One of the greatest things about attending the Bridge School is that students are able to truly move at their own pace. Students who are advanced learners can move more quickly through the curriculum. Students who are struggling can slow down and take a little bit more time and get additional resources from their teachers. Also, the typical school in a school district is following state set guidelines and standards, and they're following the pace of the entire class. And that isn't always conducive to students. The Bridge School partners with Strong Mind to provide this award-winning curriculum. And with that, students are able to trust and know that they're learning a curriculum that is built on standards that are national standards, that are research-based, and they're chronological based on how students learn. So students can actually go forward and learn that at their own pace and not have to worry if they are meeting the standards that are set forth by the state. They can know that they're learning what needs to be mastered in that course to be successful.
This episode of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice at bridge12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Find them at porchlightrental.com.
CubeMonk, featuring the world's first smart cube. Welcome to the future of moving and relocation at cubemonk.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by Airs. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com. And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles. On the web at intlauto.com.
As an expat moving to the USA, relocating is exciting, but it can also be stressful. Getting a car, truck, or SUV for personal transportation is usually a high priority. That's where International Auto Source comes in. We make getting the vehicle you want for your work assignment or academic program easy, so you're ready to drive when you arrive. Our product specialists have helped over 50,000 expatriates with their personal transportation needs, making us the largest international auto retailer in the world. International Auto Source gives you flexible payment options to buy, lease, or rent a vehicle from the world's leading auto brands, arrange financing on a purchase or lease without a U.S. credit history, social security number, or driving record, get full insurance coverage, and get approved easily through our low-rate factory-backed financing programs. And because we're an authorized distributor of the world's leading automotive brands, our no-haggle prices are competitive, and the buying experience is hassle-free. We'll even guarantee your new vehicle will be ready the day you arrive. With over 20 years of experience in the global community, We are the vehicle experts for expats. We are International Auto Source.
Let's go to Ali Shami. Ali, you've heard a lot here. I know you have a lot of experience, a lot of contacts in industry around the world. So what do you think about the number one issue facing companies today? Yeah, you know, with the COVID experience.
Definitely communication. I mean, first of all, I've learned so much in just a very small period of time. From communication is just that connection, that just not communicating with talking as much as heart-to-heart communication. I think that is the biggest challenge. But overall, I feel, and especially with respect to the topic, so I think if we look at the situation as a male that have been in meetings, executive meetings, I have to say that I've noticed throughout for decades that when we have a diverse leadership team, it's more powerful. I've noticed it. I don't know how many of you just with, you're in a meeting, you're having this discussion, and all of a sudden that element of having women out of that leadership team, and all of a sudden the dynamics, everything changes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, somehow it just brings in more, all of a sudden we're thinking differently, we're looking at things from every angle. So the role of women in the for company is a huge, and any company that doesn't think about or work towards bringing in that diversity into the leadership team at all, it's not just leadership team, but at all levels, they're missing big. Just looking from all the challenges that we have, I think if there's not one formula, I don't think there is just one, okay, women be strong, or I don't think there is one. We're in a global environment. We have to think globally about it. With every country is at a point where certain things might work really well, but in another country, it could be the worst thing that you could do. So really the higher goal that should be pursued is to be human. I mean, as a male, do I want my daughter to go to a company and then not being given the opportunities like everybody else? So that's really should be the goal. What is our intent? What are we here for? Are we here to make money? Are we here what is really our goal? I mean, for example, I've noticed that for the last several decades, I just hope leaders will stop emulating leaders like Steve Jobs and Jack Welch. It's a different time. It's a different, I mean, is it possible that another leader who is strong but authentic could also come up with the iPhone? You don't have to really be pounding at your team. You don't have to be saying, I got productivity. So really, I ask is, what are we here for? What is our intent? Is it to make money? Is it to, so that struggle, I've seen it happening in all meetings, discussions, is sometimes there is just to prove, like, are we here to impress or to express? Are we here to show how much I know versus really just let's look at it from a different angle and say, what is really the right thing for us as humans? What is the right thing? Is it just bringing in diversity into the environment and that's it? No, which is more important is that piece, that inclusion. I can get the best ingredients in the market and put it in my kitchen, but just putting it in there and not making sure that I cut it the right way, mix it the right, and just do the right thing. It's just not gonna it's not gonna give me a great cuisine. So it's really that element, that intent, that people that communicate with their heart and feel like, and those are the leaders that I'm just so impressed with, males and females, and having that approach, and not necessarily to, okay, so the best way to do is we need to do this. Is it possible that that what we're trying to solve is more of a local situation? Is it possible, okay, I can be a little bit stronger, so I'm doing really well. Is that the answer? That may not be. It's just, that's my thought. And one last thing, I mean, I know I'm gonna, I don't want to take over the whole discussion, but I tell you, just my advice for all male leaders is to put themselves in others' shoes. Now, as somebody who's coming from another country, different language, all of that, I can relate to the struggle and the challenges that women have in the workplace, right? But I had no idea how much challenges women in the workforce have until I decided, well, we decided just for my second son that was born, I stayed with him and his sister for 2 months. And I'm telling you, the first week was awesome. I was like sending emails to everybody, my friends, American friends, say, you guys are crazy. If I were you, just stay at home. How wonderful it is. You take care of the kids. It took me only 2 weeks.
If I might, I'd
Yeah.
like to address a little of what and add on to some of Wendy's comments, which I think are
Please.
extremely relevant in our industry. It's interesting, in the world of mobility, most leaders are males. Most implementers are females. And I would like to see some change in that direction, because I think, largely speaking, there's a tremendous amount of linear thinking, linear leadership. I happen to think that women are much more collaborative. You get insights from others. It's an openness, a certain vulnerability, and respect for other opinion as a leader. I'd also like to bring up the concept of race. We speak about culture, we speak about class. I look at this wonderful image through Zoom and see people from different walks of life. How often do people really have that opportunity? And unless you interface, it's merely an intellectual exercise. This is why I love what I do in our industry. But I think there needs to be more thought leadership also for leaders about their subliminal biases. And we very rarely pay attention to that, but it's that leader who sets the tone for the entire organization. I've dealt with corporates for 30 years, corporate leaders, CEO, managing directors. Having transitioned one into, I have a very, very good idea of what his leadership qualities will be through a personal interaction over a period of 2 months. By the way, I'm a social worker by training and crisis manager. So I think listening skills, that was probably the greatest gift I had ever gotten out of Boston University, is listening skills.
That's
So
really
I'd
cool.
like to see how others think about this in your own region. It's a very important aspect of success for us here, because we're usually bringing people who are non-Asian into Asia and into China, which are daunting environments in and of themselves.
So Beverly, you want to quickly summarize so Wendy can comment on that? So we have a sociology background and a psychology background.
Well, I think Wendy brings up very important points. I'm not sure that in our industry we have the opportunity to expose our colleagues to this type of thought process, or even in the training. We're very procedurally oriented, but how many of our companies really focus on culture, class, race, subliminal biases? And we're in positions of transitioning and servicing people, supporting them for success in new environments. It's a deeper thought, but certainly the value that Wendy brings, I think Angie as well, and companies should really look to do more training in this vein. It's not about manners or bowing or nodding. It's much deeper, and women have that sensitivity. So I find, and I'm not biased, I'd like to see more men. I look to train my sons in the same manner, and my male colleagues, because we all have different gifts, and collaboratively, I think we bring a lot to the table. So Wendy, I'm not sure what your thoughts are about I would say concern.
Within global mobility as a profession, there is not enough understanding of the psychological and the social challenges of these transitions, if I'm summarizing correctly. I don't know if this comes back to perhaps an early a sense I had when I was first working in this area. It felt to me, coming into this from a career that was not at all related to global mobility, that there were two primary things that, and I may be a bit too simplistic here, but there seemed to be two primary things that employers were really focusing on with regards to people who were moving overseas. Primarily, they're looking at what were people losing in the move, and they were looking at the very explicit and very clear things that people were losing in the move. So they were covering, the housing, the schooling, the loss of, the kind of local pay rates, so that people weren't kind of losing out in terms of their local income and so on. Language training, cultural training. And it seems as though that model of provision has been dominant in the industry. And it feels a little bit like a sacred cow that we've not challenged or broke down, or it's just stayed quite kind of ubiquitous somehow. And my perspective was, this again, I keep beating this drum perhaps a little bit too much. It felt to me as though that U-shaped integration curve, which is essentially a deficit model. Now, everything in how companies and people were trying to solve the problem of global mobility seemed to be around, how do we make this U shallower and narrower? How do we smooth this transition out? And that essentially meant that we were just trying to fix problems. And I think unless we challenge the models that are underneath the service provision and really ask ourselves whether these are models that are fitting the current time, then we'll keep finding these aberrations where we're missing things. One of the other key areas that companies were missing is not being able to establish return on investment, because no one was talking about what value is created. Because when you have a U-shaped model, then the value that's created is not captured by that. So I think there are lots of areas within the global mobility industry where we need to challenge. And the other thing is, just, as Ed, you're doing, and also I know lots of other conferences and so on, but it's so important that we cross-fertilize across different perspectives. So it's great to be in a collaborative network with suppliers that can facilitate things in different parts of the world, but what about that cross-disciplinary approach?
Okay, Ben.
Take that more.
I don't want to talk too much because I'd like to hear from the group actually, but I'm kind of bursting to say something. On the back of what Wendy said, over the last 3 or 4 months, one of the things that I've learned is actually step away from global mobility completely. And what have I and what can you learn from entirely different industries, like psychology is one of them, but also economics and politics. And I want to give a few shout outs and mention a few names and strong women that I would recommend exploring further for anyone that might be interested. The first is a lady called Kate Rayworth, who I've mentioned to some of you before, who created something called donut economics, which is a new way of looking at the economy, balancing society and the environment. Again, like, you may want to look into it, but she's rethinking economics. And I think what we need to do is rethink global mobility personally. And many countries and cities are actually adopting her economic model. The second is a lady called Donella Meadows, who is a revolutionary. She's a systems thinker, and a systems thinker, for those of you, and I'm still learning what that means, but it's someone that takes systems, obviously, and ways that certain things are working, and tries to adopt change, paradigm change, changes in thinking and changing, approaching certain things. So Donella Meadows, she's a really important influencer. In terms of politics, I'm sure many of you know Jacinda Ardern, who's recently re-elected as the leader of New Zealand politically. But there are other politicians that are really interesting at the moment. One of them is a lady called Sophie Howe, who is Welsh, and she's part of the Welsh government, and she was appointed the Commissioner for the Future Generations. So they actually have someone in Wales in government that is planning and strategizing well ahead into the future. They have someone built in. Now, I think the United States and other countries and other regions need to look to Sophie Howe and what they're doing in Wales and implement the same. She's another person as well. I mean, there's many of them, but I wanted to kind of let you know about these people. By all means, explore them or connect with me.
Thank you.
After that, that's it.
Yeah, Ben, why don't you write down all those names in the chat so we can all have those, okay? Let's go to Julie from an education perspective.
Well, Ed, not even just education. When I was looking at Ali's cartoon that he popped up, and it shows the race between women and men and what we're dealing with, I think the time is ripe right now for advances in women in high-level positions, because we are on a flat playground right now where everyone is having to deal with working from home, dealing with children who are schooling at home. And no matter what your position, you're having to juggle and balance all of these different things that are happening in these roles. And I think that many businesses, from my perspective that I've seen, are starting to implement flex time working. So not saying that you have to be online and you have to be working from, 8 to 5 every single day, but instead moving to a non-traditional model where these are the things that we need to get done. How you're balancing your day is going to be more up to you.
Yes.
And trying to figure that out. And so I think that as we are now kind of on this even playing field of all of our duties in life, that as we're having more innovation, like Lena had mentioned, now's the time to start a new business in this pandemic and rethink and reimagine what our businesses look like. We can have that balanced playing field a little bit more.
Okay, Fiona.
Well, I do totally agree with what you were saying there, Julie. We're definitely going into a new balance. I mean, I'm one of the oldest here on the show, and I can tell you, I think it's absolutely fantastic for women today. Not all countries have it. Sweden, I mean, is absolutely brilliant, and Lena can tell us all about it, something that most countries should adopt. But yes, women need to have that balance. It's actually what helps us to be better in our industry.
They're blocking, Sam.
Is when you have the home balance as well, and that you're happy because you're able to get home in time to put the children to bed or read a book with them, go out and play with them, rather than actually sitting behind your computer till 11 at night. And that's something which all industries need to adapt to. And maybe that, women who are a little bit higher up, let's say, in certain big companies, maybe they can move that forward. But Lena's got some really, really good ideas on this.
Yeah, Ali.
Just really quick. What you guys do is amazing. And this is from perspective of somebody who's worked for decades in the industry and globally and traveled and held meetings and went from one country to another. What you do is so critical. I mean, when I've had it the first time when I did my first assignment, you spend 90% of your time going over things that you guys, the barriers and the problem that you help to solve, immigration, relocation. And so when you have to take several months to get used to living in a certain region, in a certain continent, right? And then I travel, and then I exhaust 90% of my energy, and now guess how much money I have left to interact with the most important person for the company, which is the customer, only 10%. So I really want to commend you for what you do. And this is so important to prepare the people just going overseas, especially right now. Another thing is you're forward thinking, even though we're in the middle of the pandemic and you're talking about relocation. That's awesome. That's really an indication of forward thinking and looking for the future. So thumbs up to you guys.
Yeah, Sandra Corona, this is kind of an interesting conversation, isn't it?
It is, and it's killing me not to say what I have to say. For me, this is kind of like, you know, I can't believe that we're in this era and we're still complaining about opportunities and chauvinism and all these kind of things, when we are the ones that grow up these men. We're the ones that give them this education. What happens? Where does the system or culture, what happens that suddenly we're no longer valuable, right? When we're working, because they see their moms and they love their moms and they respect their moms. But when it comes to women in the workplace and having a voice, it's like, no. Stay there where you are, right? And so I think to me is like, okay, fine, we have a lot to do, but why don't we just focus right now on what we can do, which is the little ones, right? Let's give them that education, that thing about respecting females and contributing at home and doing things with women. And when they say, hey, you know, you're acting like a girl or you fight like a girl, you haven't seen a girl fight, so you don't want to go there. And I think there's so much that we can change right now with our children to shift this for the future generations, because this is what we're talking about. And if we don't start acting right now with our children, the future women, you know, are going to be facing the same issue. And Julie Kratz pointed it so good in her book, where going back to what you said, one of the first questions you asked said, does it come down to coaching? Yes, people need coaching, but you also need to start with yourself. If you don't understand yourself, if you don't know yourself, then how do you know what kind of help you need? So I hope that it makes a lot of people think, the people that get to see the show, work on your children and work on yourself, and then focus on what the companies can do for you, because you're probably just lying to yourself. You're pretending to be somebody, faking it till you make it. And that's not where you want to be.
Thank you. Wow. Bindu, would you like to come on the screen? It's okay. I thank you for your comments and your chat in the background. Bindu, you're welcome to join us. Let's go to Lena. You've been silent and patient too long.
Well, I am in Sweden, and I do acknowledge that I'm in a different climate than a lot of people, but I think that you have to start with the small things, and whatever gets measured happens. So let's say that you are promoting people from within, let at least 50% of the top management be women. Have that as a plan. Have that as a goal and an aim. And if you have that in your KPIs for your company, then it will happen because it's measured. So what is measured happens. And then, just like we have talked about here, the remote work situation has men they have also worked at home. They have also been surrounded by children. And we all know how easy that is. So there's probably a lot more empathy from people working together at a home and trying to find space. And there are loudspeakers in every family, I think, et cetera, et cetera. But the most important thing is to have a work life that works for people. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. You know, allow work from home, have flex time, don't have video conferencing or meetings internally around 9 o'clock and 4 o'clock, because that's the school pickup time. allow people to work part-time. A lot of women in Sweden, after they have their child or children, they are allowed to work by law. Men and women with children under 8 can work part-time. So you can combine, and I know Fiona talked about this in an earlier show, how we can encourage people to continue to upskill, reskill during maternity leave or parental leave is what we say, because it's shared here. It's not just for the women to be home with children, also the fathers are home too, and they want to be home. They would never forego the opportunity to have that possibility. And it's not uncommon to promote women while they're on maternity leave. And it's actually a perfect time to do it, because it's anybody here who's been dealing with a 3-year-old knows that you have to be a problem solver. You have to have an enormous amount of patience, and you have to be very solutions oriented. And all these skills come back into the workplace. So why would a company want to lose this amazing asset that comes back to your company? It's like when we're all in global mobility. So the closest thing, and maybe Ali, you've experienced this, you send out a high performer on an expat assignment only to drop the ball when they come back home. So I don't know, and I'm sure we've heard this a million times, all of us. An expat comes back, it's the most expensive thing you can do with an employee is to send them around the world, and we're all happy because it's our job to take care of them. They come back, and what happens? Within a year, another employer has picked up this person who has, at your expense, gained all this phenomenal knowledge and education and contacts, and somebody else will pick that up. And it's the same with women. So women who are home for whatever amount of time with children is an incredible asset. And I've heard HR say that that's the people we want to hire, because they know how to be focused, work productively, and they're always prepared for the worst thing that can happen. So they work with margins.
Interesting stuff. Thank you so much. Let's go to Shraddha, please.
Yeah, hi, thanks. I've been dying to jump in. I mean, resonating with everybody with what they're saying. Nazia, completely agree with you. And yes, our part of the world is very similar to yours. But, you know, going back a little bit to what Wendy said, I think she made that statement that we tend to be very hard on ourselves. And I do agree with that, because, yeah, we're wearing all these different hats. You know, we're mom, we're homemaker very often, just by, you know, by nature of being women, I guess, if you want to call it. We're running, we're running a business, or we're doing a job. And at the same time, there is that personal me time, which is just not there anymore at some level. You're wearing all these different hats, and you take a step back and say, what about that, you know, that time I get to myself? So for instance, what I've done in this lockdown is chosen to wake up every morning between 4:30 and 5:30, because that's the only time I get to myself in the day, when I get to time to think, and I get to write, and I get to sort of just be myself. You know what I mean by that? Otherwise it becomes, you know, school time, then work time, then, you know, reaching out to your employees and saying, what's the plan for today? What's going on? What's your schedule like? And the one thing that I feel that we've learned is how we need to just support each other. That's the biggest thing. And I think that's great that, you know, I see this in this group of women here, like it's, you know, we're here to kind of encourage each other, support each other, because it's not easy. And it's so nice to see that empathy that goes around the room, because you understand what you're doing. And, you know, it's exhausting most days, right? And you don't know how the next day is going to go about, but the next day comes and, you know, bang, you're at it in the evening, and you're like, wow, how the hell did I just do that today? But it happens again the next day. But that being said, I think what's interesting also, someone said that, you know, we need to change the way things are. We need more equality, if that makes sense. And whether it's at the workplace, whether it's at home, whether it's at anything, you know, whether we're talking about women at the workplace in high positions. I've worked in corporate before this. I've worked with GE, I've worked with Unilever, I've worked with Macquarie, which is an Australian bank. And the thing is that as you go higher and higher up the hierarchy, you see more and more women dropping out, and I don't know what the reason for that is. And I'm sure there are plenty, and I don't think we can water it down to one or small two reasons. But I feel like we need to encourage each other to say that, you know, you can do it, and we need a little bit more inclusion, and maybe just that leg up every now and then to say, don't be so hard on yourself. It's all right, and just get on with it. And and I feel like maybe it's a good forum that's starting up. I feel like we need to take this conversation further and make something out of it, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's
and
great.
I kind of agree with what Fiona said too, which is that being a, you know, the one last thing, sorry, I think which I personally have struggled with is, you know, being a woman leading an organization. And very often we struggle with the whole idea of, are you going to be the strong, curt lady, and then go back and then, you know, at the same time be this empathetic, nurturing person. And, you know, it's this constant balancing act. And the other thing I feel is that, you know, we need to be able to sort of, you know, just be yourself. It's okay.
Thank you very much, Radha. Juliana, please jump in.
Yes, I feel the same here. I struggled a lot when my daughter was born 5 years ago. I had at that time a boss, and he didn't have children, so he didn't understand the balance that I need when I came back to work after the leave, maternity. So I struggled a lot as a personal experience because my daughter, when she went to a child care with 5 months, she got sick over and over, and he didn't understand when I had to leave the office to took her to the doctor and so on. So I think we struggle a lot in so many ways, and I have the same experience here in my house when my husband spent like 1 week with my daughter, and then he said to me, "No, I prefer to spend a whole year working without no stopping because it's very tough." Now I can understand you. So I think makes sense to have all this conversation here and to be vulnerable, because we need to find this balance. We need to be honest with each other. We all are struggling here. We all have difficulties here. So I think we have to accept the position that we have, as we had some exchange in our email, and Sophie mentioned that she wasn't able to participate today because she's going to bake a cake with her daughter. So I think she's the right one here, you know. I think this should be the right thing to do, to accept and to face that we are moms, we are businesswomen and so on, and we should support each other.
Wendy Kendall.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a challenge, isn't it? And what I find interesting in this conversation is how many of us actually had partners who did stay home and did spend some time raising younger children and so on. I think that's quite exceptional. My husband was also doing the similar thing when. So my son is 19 now, so nearly 20 years ago. What I found interesting at the time about that was that when he told people in his company, and he was working for a global corporate, when he told people that he was going to spend some time at home, he had quite a lot of negative reactions from his colleagues. And his dad told him, well, you know, you're probably ruining your career by doing this. It was only 4 months. And he had, not so much from bosses, but from colleagues at the same level as him, quite some challenging kind of reactions from them. And I wonder if that's better these days. I was surprised at the time because I thought even 20 years ago, it was a bit more advanced than that. And I wonder if it's better these days and that there is a bit more flexibility in how we can do these things.
Interesting, isn't it? Lena, would you like to chat about the Swedish experiment and all this? It's very equalized, isn't it?
It is. We were just ranked as #1, so I realized that it's not where most other countries are, right? So that's why you have to do what you can, and everything starts with small steps. And I think that to get entrepreneurs, smaller business owners and medium business owners, maybe in the global mobility industry, because it's a lot of women in our industry, to be more flexible and more generous with moms and also fathers, of course, but to make it easy. I mean, what's so difficult about planning a maternity leave? There is nothing as easy as that, because you have 6 months at least before it actually happens. So you can train a person that goes next to the person who is leaving. And it's the easiest thing you can do. It's much worse when somebody quits or gets sick and disappears for other reasons. Maternity leaves are super easy. So that's a good thing to practice on, I would say.
Okay, let's
and expect people to come back and encourage them to come back.
Yeah.
It takes forever to train people, so it's a difficult job. You have to know and learn a lot. So you really want to keep them in the business.
So let's go to Anita. Yeah.
I just quickly to share some experience I had a few years ago, talking a part of being part of Point of Mobility. I also own part of a company, mobility company in Croatia, and I got involved in some meetings, and businessmen, proper business owners of companies say that if you want a job to be done, just done as you want it to be done, you hire a man. And if that goes wrong, you hire a woman to fix it. So for me, that's quite an achievement at these days. I also wanted to get back to Nazia's question. I even wrote it down, are we strong enough? I don't think we have a choice, really. It's with the many hats, you have to be flexible in prioritizing. You get to work under stress, then you realize you function better under stress, and then the ball keeps rolling until you get exhausted one day. It's amazing world that we're living in.
Hey, Ali, I've learned a lot here. Have you?
Oh goodness! I'm telling you, I'm just blocking till noon. I could stay as it's 9:30 in the morning here. So I just love what I heard. I mean, if I say I don't want to underscore what Anita, what Lena, what Shraddha, everybody, I can go over everybody. But I really, something that I heard from Shraddha and from Lena is that resonated with me is really we are responsible for where we are. The minute we say it's not us, it's them, that's where we lose. I think there's so much we can learn from immigrants. There's so much we can learn from immigrants. If you think only women, how many of you have been in a meeting and you have an idea and you say, boss, this is what I think we should do this. And then and nobody says anything. And then another person right next to you raises their hand and they say exactly the same idea. And everybody turns and they'll say, yeah, that's good. Like, it happened to me not too long ago. So how do we, so it's not just, I mean, the minute any immigrant, usually when you go, it's very sudden. If you think that you are inside this environment that's being programmed and the culture to behave certain way, try getting out completely from one planet and go to another planet. So what is the worst thing I can do if the first thing I can do is say, well, you know what? I don't think I will ever be a senior manager at Boeing. I don't think I will be going to represent the Boeing company overseas. But the minute I just had in my mind that, hey, it's going to take one little bit at a time, as Lena said, just a little bit of things, and having that focus, and we get where we want to get. Nobody's going to come and say, and you know what? I think the most effective thing that I've seen in organizations happening, don't worry about convincing the people in the team. Go all the way to the top. Influence people at the top. Those are the ones that will make a difference, more difference. right? If you want to introduce a culture in a company that it's more inclusive and treat women, men, different, everybody the same, immigrants the same, go to the top, go for the executives, because this is where the rubber meets the road.
Thanks, Ali. Nazia.
Can I say something?
The
Yeah,
weather was
so
nice. Yes, definitely.
As soon as
yeah.
we can continue
As we were talking about maternity,
outside, that's okay. After it will be another story. But for now, we can still be outside. So
Okay, somebody's got to mute.
Sylvie.
Okay, Nazia.
So a quick point when everybody was
Hold
talking
on
about
a second.
maternity
I have to
leave, and I
sign
know
out
you
of
come
this,
from a region where there is months of maternity leave. In UAE, it is only 45 calendar days. So it is very much the standards, you know, it's the labor law. These are the standards, how they perceive the this whole process. And having to expect somebody come back in after 45 calendar days is in itself, you shutting your eyes, and you don't want to even think about what impact it can make on a mother's psychology, how much difficulty she can have in arranging help. And this has been going on for so long. But so there are certain organizations in UAE where what they would do, they would give, you know, internally, they have an internal process of expanding it to 3 months. So this is very much their internal decision to expand it to the maximum 3 months. Very rare we will see 6 months, but the labor law only allows you to 45 calendar days. I stress upon this calendar days because I only realized 3 days before leaving for maternity leave. And I was corrected by somebody, and I was completely in shock. 45 calendar days was a shock for me. And there was a time I had to, like, you know, I felt like making a decision right away that if I be coming back or not. But thanks to my, you know, my family support and everything. And then I combined my vacation. I said, combine my future sick leaves, combine everything in it, because I'm not planning to come back and fully paid, please, in 3 months. So I kind of combined my vacation and everything. My boss was good enough to do that. So yes, so these are just standards, labor laws, and these are standards. And there's so much to fight. There's so much still on so many platforms we have to fight for ourselves.
Okay, Beverly.
So, yes.
Oh. I can't hear you.
Say through COVID, no one wanted COVID, expected COVID, but one of the, I think, more valuable things that has come out of this is that we've all had to be a little bit more introspective. You've seen where everybody working from home, the husbands and wives have had shared tasks, and even better, for instance, in the US, many of these young families have now gone back to the grandparents, something you would never have done 5 years ago. So the closeness of relationships, of families, of values has really changed quite significantly over the last 10 months. And I think also, I think that's very important, because I do feel that women do carry social values and they carry it on to the next generation. So we're all in positions to weigh in. I think everybody on this platform has something of great value, but very often we're not necessarily invited in. So I think it's important that you do weigh in. There's just tremendous value in speaking. There can be no wrong.
Yeah. How about Teresa Howe?
Hey there. You know, I can relate to what Juliana was talking about. You know, when my daughter shifted from one school to the next, I went and I kind of told my boss that I was going to be working earlier and leaving earlier, but I would still be accessible. And I remember he kind of begrudgingly said, well, we'll give it a go. And I thought to myself, you know, dude, I'm not really asking you. That's what I have to do, you know? And I think the reason being is that I had 40 employees at the time. And if one of my employees would have come in, I would have never questioned that wasn't okay to do that. So, you know, it really really made me think about, as a female leader, the importance of really having that empathy. And I think women often feel it shows weakness whenever they express personal needs. And that's unfortunate that we're in an environment like that, but it's very true, you know? And I think, you know, there's an implicit bias, and that goes back to, you know, the women, you know, raise the children. And so people and men particularly think of the women as nurturers. And sometimes I think that, unfortunately, gets in the way of us in the corporate world. I think it's improved a lot, but I think COVID has actually, to your point, Beverly, has actually helped shift that a little bit, because there are many men that are having to be at home and be the caregivers as well. So, you know, with all the horrible things that COVID has happened, I think it has opened the door a little bit to thinking more openly about the role of everybody that has children at home and in the workforce, for sure.
Thank you so much for doing this program today. Fiona, are you still there? I don't see you. So Lena, would you like to sum up?
Sure. I think you're both on a really good trajectory there, Beverly and Teresa. I think we have learned to cooperate much more. COVID has shown us that working from home works perfectly fine. It has also shown us that he's cute. It has shown us that it can be done, and it can be combined with children. And it has shown us, don't worry, it has shown us that long commutes may be wasteful. It's also good for the climate to not drive and to spend hours every day in a car, when you can do so many better things with that time. And also to not everybody in Sweden, people are told not to take the public transport and instead go off peak hours, which in itself, and the flex time, which is so applauded here, was actually in 1973, it came about because they built a big office in the city of Stockholm, and the subway couldn't take all the people there. So they had to start the flex time, not to be nice to women or to make life easier for anybody. The subway couldn't handle the amount of people who needed to go. So sometimes you get developments for all the wrong reasons. And maybe COVID is one of those situations where I think we're gonna all come out on the other side of this and are much more open to doing things differently. And we see that it works. So I'm very hopeful for the future. And I think women are in a great position. And the HR lady at a Swedish HR foundation said that it's leveling out the playing field, and all that water cooler talk that we are missing, or everybody's talking about the water cooler and informality, said now all the right people and the real stakeholders in a project are invited to the meeting, rather than the informal influence of perhaps the top guy or woman has already been taken care of at the water cooler. Now instead it's work results oriented work environment. And I think that's what we will see at the other side of COVID.
Sandra Corona, it sounds like we have the makings of a really good book.
It sounds like it, yes. I think a lot of the information that has been shared today is, you can find it everywhere, but if we can compilate, if we can gather it in one single space, imagine the information that we can leave to our future generations, you know, of how to deal with work, how to deal with the bad boss, the bad female boss. Because I'm very sure that a lot of us, going back to somebody was saying that how we support each other, right, as females, is something that we miss so much. It's not just in the workplace, it's with issues that you face inside the workplace, like sexual harassment, bullying, and all of these kind of things. Incredibly, when they're in the environment of an office, it just seems that everybody's ganging up on you. But when they find you in the bathroom crying or something like that, they're all like, oh, I understand. I share your same feeling. I'm so sorry. And then you're like, but why don't you defend me? So all these kind of things that women are lacking, I wish that more women would speak up and stop these kind of abuse of not being taken into account, not being added into meetings, thinking that because women, we're emotional creatures, we probably don't have much to say, or we're going to say something that is not appropriate. I don't know. But this information that we have here is amazing, like you said, Philip. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. So, Anita, nice to meet you, and thank you for your contributions. And are things good in Germany? There seems to be a team effort to make things better.
Yeah, we're working very hardly. Our customers are relying on us more than ever for all kinds of questions you can imagine. It's not looking good at the moment. Cases are increasing with corona, of course. It's exploding in red every day within Europe. So I hope countries will develop some kind of procedures and let people travel, because we kind of rely on people traveling. So whatever it takes, let us do the procedure and let us go and do the job. You know, Germany is a very industrial oriented country. They do have a lot of engineers being sent on short-term assignments around the world. And now this is not happening. And this is, I think every industry suffers at the moment. So we'll see. We're waiting.
So Beverly, thank you very much for being on our program for the first time. I really appreciate your perspectives and your information. So about mentoring, do you want to talk about mentoring? I know that was one of your interesting topics.
I do mentor many women, but males as well, my colleagues. I try to be an equal opportunity employer. I think mentoring is extremely important as we navigate, and particularly in this period when I think there's just a tremendous amount of stress on families and employees and everyone. And it takes time and patience, and I think this is where I find value in the use of time. It's not about work, it's not about business, it's just taking that time aside. Also in the community, I find women such as yourselves can be very influential in other sectors outside of our own. And it's important because you're in positions of working with people. So there's a great value. It's not just the intellectual capability, but it's the type of emotional EQ that you've gained through your experiences that should be imparted. That's the compassion and the empathy element. So I thank you all for allowing me to be present this evening.
Thank you. Please come back. Have a good sleep. Lena, thank you again for being involved. Let's talk sometime soon about our Nordic idea, and we'll go from there. Ali, Shami, thank you. Lena,
Absolutely.
yeah.
May I just say something? Just
Yeah.
I totally agree with what I heard, and just with the rest of saying there's something good about COVID. I mean, there are two things. I think it's the good thing about it is, I have friends that were telling me, oh, I'm complaining about this. I'm like, you remember 2 years ago, you used to tell me if I can just get one day off, just work at home, that would be so awesome. I would love to do. Can you imagine what I can do? Think about all the positive things coming out. The projects were done, connecting appreciation, having empathy with our, wives and wives with husbands, and it's just. But the only thing that I think is really good, I'm one of those where I'm always look at the good thing in every bad thing that happens. The good thing about COVID is we're all going through it at the same time. It's not just one country. It's not just one person.
Right.
So thank you so much for the opportunity. It was a pleasure meeting everybody.
Thank you very much, Ali.
Hey, Ed.
Hey, Mark Colo, welcome.
Can I interject a closing comment?
Yeah, please.
I read recently, this was a statement made by Mother Teresa. She said, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. So I think a lot of these issues in society begin in the home, and parenting is probably one of the hardest jobs you'll ever do. So I'm thankful to have had the opportunity, but it's not for the weak. I just wanted to share that. And then my last credo is the only constant is change. So we need to learn to embrace it. That's my only comments.
Yeah, well, you be well, Mark, and thank you very much for being involved here. Nazia, thanks so much for doing this. I welcome you to come back on a future show. I'll keep you informed. We will be broadcasting in Dubai, not next week, sometime in November. So do you know the Ojan Coca-Cola franchise in UAE? AUJAN is the name of the company. They have the Coca-Cola franchise. The HR director is going to be my special guest interview.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'll invite you to that.
Sure. Looking forward.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, my
Lovely
friends.
I just want to say one thing. It has been a pleasure meeting you all. What a wonderful group of people you have invited, Edwin. This particular webinar is, I have a feeling it's so different from all the others I've been attending. This is talking about reality and real solutions. So thank you very much, everybody.
No, thank you for your participation, because your participation drives this and makes my job easier. So, so thank you all. Let's end this. Thank you. We've made friends and new connections. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Anita. Beverly, is wonderful to see you again. Sandra, always a pleasure. Ali, great. Lena, let's talk soon.
Thank you. Have
Okay.
a great evening, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for today's Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day and stay safe.